Welcome to another Globunto Mindshift video. I'm here to continue on the reflection that I started on my previous video about changing perceptions, changing paradigms, and shifting our minds as Africans. In my previous video, I was calling on all of us to, oh my goodness, the weather out there, it's thunder, it's raining, is blessings. So in my previous video, I was inviting all of us, Africans and Black people, to do an introspection and to ask ourselves the question about what is it that we can do in the midst of this pandemic while we're locked down. What is it that we can do in order to uplift ourselves, in order to change the perceptions that the world has about us, to help us discover who we really are so we can reintroduce ourselves to the world in a different way when this is over or starting from now onwards. I did invite you also to think in terms of how can you help to share African history, share the history of who we are as Africans, as Black people, the history of the wars and the battles and the obstacles and the humiliations that we have overcome over the years. And we are still surviving. Today, we are the second largest continent in the world. Today, we are the second largest continent in the world and the youngest continent for that matter. It means the future is happening here. The future is happening in Africa. The rest of the world is aging, but not in Africa. So my invite for you today is to think about where your strengths are. Imagine we are set to be 1.2 billion people in the world, 1.2 of about 7.2 billion people in the whole world. We are 1.2. Just imagine if half of that 1.2 billion people stuck their heads together, all their talents, their knowledge, their wisdom, their expertise, their experiences, their hopes, their expectations, and above all, their action. Just imagine we could take collective action towards changing our narrative, towards introducing ourselves into the world, towards collecting our history and sharing with our children, towards re-educating our children, towards sharing the African wisdom and African knowledge with them. Today, our children are all on social media. They consume a lot of content that are put out there. And quite often, the content that they're consuming does not reflect who they are. The characters of the stories that they watch every day do not look like them. The concept of the characters in the concept of beauty that they see every day does not look like them. So the question is, what is it that you and I can do while we are locked down? What is it that we can do today to make our children more self-conscious? When you're self-conscious, the next step is, how do we make them more African conscious? By that I mean, how do we become aware of who we are as Black people, of what our history has been like, what our aspirations are like, what we are capable of, what we are gifted with, what we can do differently. What is it that we can, how do we gain the knowledge of who we really are? How can we contribute, helping our children and people around us to know who we really are? Because I think, again, I will keep saying this, if we don't know who we are, we will always constantly fight to be who we think that people want us to be. And the more we fight to be who people want us to be, the more we weaken ourselves. Okay, we weaken ourselves, we kill our self-confidence, we kill our self-esteem, and especially if we are not succeeding, this really destroys us. And sometimes we end up resigning, we end up giving up on ourselves, we end up accepting the narrow perceptions and opinions that other people have of us just because we look the way we are. So today I'm here to invite you. I write a series of books called Africa for Smart Kids. That book series has, at the moment, it has 19 titles, starting from Africa for Smart Kids, book 1, Let's Talk About Africa, right? The second one is Where is Africa? The third one is Are All Africans Black? The fourth one is made in Africa. And in that book, I am showing you cars and aeroplanes manufactured in Africa. Yes, we do make cars in Africa. You just need to look to, if you love cars like Ferrari, you just need to take a look at Liraki, a Moroccan manufactured car. You may want to take a look at, if you like Rolls Royce, you may want to take a look at Kira cars from Uganda. So this is just an example. You may want to look at Nigeria, Emerson cars, or look at Ghana, Kantanka cars. And there's so many books in that, so many cars manufactured in Africa in that book that will really make you proud to be an African. Book 5 is what is colonization? And in that book, I'm really showing you some of the great African leaders who fought against the colonization of Africans. I mean, they fought back at the time. You'll meet Asantewa, you'll meet King Samori, you'll meet Queen Zinga, and you'll meet quite a lot of other amazing Africans that we don't really know today in that book. Book 6 is What is Enslavement? And in that book, I'm also really showing you what it was, what we survived, what our people survived, what they went through, and still they thrived, they built America, and they're still alive. And some of them are wanting to come back to the continent. So I'm showing you what we went through, and in spite of which we are still standing tall. We are still going through storms, and yet we are not beaten, because as Africans, we were not created to be beaten. As Africans, we were not created to be defeated. We may seem weak, we may not, but just by the nature of being African, we are so spiritually strong inside that you can't kill our spirit. You can kill us physically. You can do whatever you want. 10,000 white police guys can beat an African down. But what you can do is you can't kill the spirit of an African. You can lock them in prison for many years. You have seen some of the Africans who were locked in prison for many years and condemned to death. They came out of prison and became the president of their countries. That is what it means to be an African. That is how powerful we are. So that you'll see some of that in my book called my book 6. And the other book is I Know My Africa from A to Z. In I Know My Africa from A to Z, I am taking our kids from A for Algeria to Z for Zimbabwe, and really helping them to get to know the 55 African countries that we are today. Quite a lot of kids think like Africa is just one country, including our African kids and our Black kids. So in that book, I'm really taking them across all the 55 countries. I'm giving them African languages spoken, giving them the population, giving them some facts and figures that may really interest them to go do some more research, so they can find out more about themselves. It's their legacy. Africa is our children's legacy. It is their heritage. It is their identity. So we really need to help them to discover this identity. Another book is Let's Talk About Africa's Female Presidents and Prime Ministers. Did you know that we have had 37 female presidents and prime ministers in Africa, and that our first female prime minister dates as far back as 1975? That was Elizabeth Domitian in the Central African Republic. Now today, when we talk about women being marginalized, when you talk about leadership, when you talk about gender, everyone point fingers at Africa and will tell you that's where women are submissive, that's where women are invisible, that's where women are everything negative. But hey, we have had 37 female presidents and prime ministers on this continent. Most of them are still alive. That book is for you and your children to get to know these women, so they can empower you, so they can give you the permission to be great. They can give our children something to be proud of. Okay, and if you read my another one of my books, it tells you about Africa's Nobel Prize winners. We have had 24 Nobel Prize winners up until 2019. They are people they are great achievers. They achieved something in their lives. That's why they got the Nobel Prize. So I'm inviting you to get to know them, so you can be proud of them, because they're part of your story. They are your narrative. They are your legacy. One of the books that I really want to recommend to you is the Globuntu ABC Affirmations for the Black Child. As Black children, we grow up with a lot of negativity, with a lot of conversations about lack. We hear everything that the media says about us. In the midst of this pandemic, even though it didn't come from Africa, you still see that Africans are still being put somewhere in a box, in the negative box. people still projecting that they will see dead bodies in Africa, even though we have the least number of contaminations, the least number of cases, and the least number of deaths the world all over. So the affirmation book is really there to affirm your child. Your child relearns the ABC. You and your child, I should say, they relearn the letters of the alphabet from an affirmative point of view, from an affirmative perspective. Let's take A, for example. A for I am African, I am Abantu, I am abounding, I am amazing. And it goes further. B for I am bold, I'm black, I'm bright. And so it goes right down to Z. Now, you're asking yourself, why am I telling you all of this? All these books are available for you on my website. Some of them are on Amazon. They are available on my website, and you can actually have access to them so you can learn for yourself or teach your children about their African heritage. I also have a series of quiz that we read aloud kids to learn about all this information in a fun way. Imagine you're having a quiz with your children. So this is what I'm putting out there and saying, let's use this time to teach ourselves. Let's use this time to discover our identity, our heritage, our vast history, which will really make you proud when you read about it. Look, when I used to live in Europe and when shit happened, you'll see my TED Talk on YouTube. I packed my 2 suitcases and moved here because I wanted to find myself. And finding myself led me to writing books. And each one of the books that I write gives me more pride. It's always a wow. When I finish writing a book, my shoulders are even taller because I know who I am. I know on whose shoulders I stand. I know how rich my heritage is. And I wish for every Black child. I wish for every Black family, every Black household. I wish for every public library. I wish for every home, every boardroom, every company that comes to work in Africa. I wish for you to get to know Africa from that perspective. And if we all put our hands together and teach this knowledge, and I'm also inviting you, if you want to write and you don't know how to write, but you want to reveal Africa to our children, come to my master classes, come to my online coaching, and I will coach you how to do your own research and write your own book. Because I'm here to tell you, it is time to quit talkation to move to action. We should quit talking and start taking action. And you and I can take action every day. We can take action every day to change the African narrative. My name is Beatrice Achaleke. I am the author of the Africa for Smart Kids book series, the publisher of Globuntu Books, and the founder of the Globuntu Mindshift System. I am here if you want to take action. You can go on my website, www.globuntubooks.com, or check us on YouTube or on other social media. I invite you to take action with me so we can change the narrative, because it is our responsibility to change the narrative. It is our responsibility to feed our children with contents that make them proud, that make them aware of their Blackness, that make them proud of their Black identity and their Black heritage.